Hi everyone, welcome to today's tutorial. My name is Hamted. The first question we're going to be solving today is from tutorial sheet 4, question 1. We're going to solve A, B and C. So the first question here says solve the quadratic equation. Solve the quadratic equations using factorization. So what you need to understand here is that when you're dealing with factorization, you need to understand two things here. You need to know how to find the product and how to find the sum. So it's very simple. To find the product, you just multiply A and C. So this is a quadratic form. This is a quadratic equation which is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So when you are solving such an equation, you first find the product. So the product is just 4 times 15, which is 60, and then the sum is negative 16. So negative 16 is the sum. So we need to find two numbers that when we multiply them, they're supposed to give us 60. When we add them, we'll get negative 16. And what are these two numbers? I know most of you find it difficult to find those numbers, but you can just, if you want to find those numbers, you just find the factors, or rather the numbers that can go into 60. So we know that 1 can go into 60 how many times? 60 times. You know that 2 can go into 60 how many times? 30 times. We know that 3 can go into 60 how many times? 20 times. We know that 4 can go into 60 how many times? 15 times. And 5 can go into 60 how many times? 12 times. And then we know that even 6 can go into 60 how many times? 10 times. So now find two numbers that when added will give you 16, and then when multiplied will give you 16. And of course from these numbers it's just this set. So when you multiply 6 times 10, you get 60. When you add 6 plus 10, you get 16. So in other words, now if you want this 16 to be a negative number, meaning you have to add a negative this side and a negative that side. So this is what you're going to have. So negative 6 minus 10, you get negative 16. So we've found our factors. So the factors are negative 6 and negative 10. So now we quickly move on into solving the quadratic equation. So we now replace the factors where there is 16 there. So we say 4x squared minus 6x, you can start with any, minus 10x plus 15. This will give us 0. So now what you do is you now factorize, which one is common here between the two terms. We know to say 2x can go into 4x squared. It can also go into 6x squared. So 2x into 4x squared will just give you 2x, and then 2x into negative 6x will just give you negative 3. So here when you have the negative starting here, is always common. So we factorize the negative here, and then we also check which number can go into these two numbers. Of course 5 can go into 10 and 15. So 5 into 10x will get 2x, and then 5 into 15, negative 5 into 15, get negative 3, and then this is equal to 0. So if you find that what is in the brackets is not the same, just know that you've made a mistake somewhere. So in this case we can see that 2x minus 3, there's 2x minus 3 there, meaning we are correct. So we write this and then we factorize. We start with the factor is 2x minus 3, and then you write 2x minus 5. So it's supposed to be x minus 5, like that. So we now equate everything to 0, so we say 2x minus 3 is equal to 0, and we also say 2x minus 5 is equal to 0. So we now make x the subject in both cases. So when you make x the subject in this equation, you have your value of x to be equal to 3 over 2. Then the other value of x, when you make x the subject in this equation, you're going to have your x being equal to 5 over 2. So this is how you solve quadratic equations by factorization method. So let me also solve one of the remaining two questions, then we go to B. So the other question we have is this one, which is x squared plus 10x plus 25. So the product here is found by multiplying 1 times 25, which is just 25, and then the sum is found by just getting the coefficient of x there, which is 10. Then to find the factors, now we find two numbers that when multiplied will give us 25, when added will give us 10. Of course it's 5 and 5. So when we add 5 plus 5 will get 10, 5 times 5 will get 25. So now we replace them there. We're going to have this. So this is what we're going to have. And then when you factorize, you have that. So x times x, you get x squared. X times 5, you get 5x. We also factorize here. 5 is common. Have x plus 5. So we can check here now. You can see that what is in this bracket and this and in that other bracket is just the same. So x plus 5 in brackets, that is our factor. Another factor we have is x plus 5, which is equal to 0. So the values of x will now be equal to x. We have x is equal to 5. Another one, which is x, which is still going to be equal to, negative 5, not 5. X will still be negative 5. So these are the values of x for the second equation. So this is how simple solving equations by factorization methods is. So let's quickly move on to B. B is saying solve the quadratic equation by completing the square method, by using the completing of the square method. So when you're solving such equations, it's important for you to know how to factorize, and you take me, or rather you should concentrate on this one. Most people miss it. So here what you do is you first factor out the 2. So when you factor out the 2, you are going to remain with x squared. Then here when you divide 2 throughout there, we'll get we'll get just x there. So I'll factorize the 2 from the first two terms, then I'll remain with the 5 this side. Then this is still equal to 0. So again, what we do is, if you want, you can take this 5 to the other side of the equal sign, there's no problem. But what you do first is so again here what you do is you now complete the square of this part. How? By finding half of that. So you find half of x there, you are going to have half of x, or half of 1, the coefficient of this is just half as it is, and then this one you square it, and then you subtract the same half again, squared, then you say plus x. that is the x, then plus 5 is equal to 0. So now here what you can do is you can complete the square on this part, meaning you are going to have something like this: x plus half, everything in brackets, and then this will be minus 1 over 4. You forget about the x, and then you can take the 5 to the other side of the equal sign. You multiply it throughout by these 2, you are going to have 2, open the brackets, plus 1 over 2, oh sorry, this is x, then everything squared, minus 2 times 1 over 4 will give us 1 over 2, being equal to negative 5. You take this 1 over 2 to the other side of the equal sign, then divide everything by 2. Or let me just write this step independently. So I have negative 5, then plus 1 over 2. So you simplify this by dividing by 2. You are going to have something like this. To be 2, and then open brackets, x plus 1 over 2 squared is equal to, when you simplify this, we're going to have negative 10 plus 1, which is negative 9. Then everything over 2. Okay, everything over 2. So from there you can now divide by 4, divide by 2, divide by 2 on both sides. So you are going to have something like this. Then there's a square there, so to get rid of this square, you square root both sides. So you square root both sides, you find the square root of this part, the square root of that part. So you are going to have x plus 1 over 2 this side, being equal to, so when you find the square root of a negative number, if you're dealing with complex numbers, you can say this is 3 over 2 I. Then you take this to the other side of the equal sign, meaning your value of x will now be equal to, sorry, this one is supposed to be plus or minus, so meaning this will be plus or minus that. And then when you simplify this, you are going to have, when you take this half to the other side of the equal sign, you have negative 1 over 2 plus or minus 3 over 2i. So these are the solutions for the first equation. Yeah, these are the solutions for the first equation. So let's quickly move on to the next equation, which is this one. So for this one, you first have to arrange it and take it to a quadratic equation form. So this is going to be 5x squared minus 2x, then plus 1 being equal to 0. So you factor out the 5, you're going to have x squared minus 2 over 5x, then we close the brackets, plus 1 is equal to 0. And then what you do is you find half of that. So when you find the half of this part, you're going to have x squared here, then plus 2 over 10, which is just the same as 1 over 5, or let's just write it as 2 over 10. Yeah, we'll come and simplify it at the end. Of course it's negative, then you square that, minus the same 2 over 10 again, squared. It's supposed to be negative, then this is a square, and then you say minus 2 over 5x. Then this is equal to, you take this negative 1 to the other side of the equal sign. So we'll complete the square there. So we're going to have something like this: x minus 2 over 10 squared. Then we have minus 4 over 100. You open the brackets there. Then is equal to negative 1. So you take this to the other side of the equal sign. We're going to have, and then we open the brackets here. Sorry, first we open the brackets before we take it to the other side of the equal sign. So we're going to have 5 open brackets x minus 2 over 10 squared. Then 5 times 4, there we get 20 over 100. That will give you 1 over 5. As your answer. And then this is equal to negative 1. So we take this to the other side of the equal sign. You have 5x minus 2 over 10 squared, and then you take this to the other side of the equal sign. You're going to have negative 1 plus 1 over 5. I don't know why these questions are giving us complex numbers. Okay, so 5 open brackets x minus 2. But if you've not yet learned complex numbers, if you find that the question has given you such a solution, you simply just conclude by saying it has no solutions. So 5, when you simplify this part, you are going to have negative 4 over 5. So when you divide everything by 5, you're going to have this. You're going to have, sorry, let me just write it properly. So you're going to have x minus 2 over 5 in brackets squared being equal to 4 over 25. So this is a negative. Then from there you square root both sides. When you find the square root of both sides there, you're going to have x minus 2 over 5 being equal to plus or minus, this will give us 2 over 5. So if you've not done complex numbers, you just say no solution. Here, when you reach this part, you just say no solutions. Then, but if you've done complex numbers, you can simplify it further and say x is now equal to 2 over 5 plus or minus 2 over 5i. So these are the solutions for the second part again. Yeah, so it's not always, again, let me emphasize, it's not always that you get complex numbers. Sometimes you get numbers, just normal numbers. Alright, so let's quickly move on to the next question, which is part C. I've answered at least 2 questions here. I want to be answering a lot of questions at least in one day, so that's the reason why I'm getting two questions on each question. So yeah, maybe we can do one on this one. Or anyway, let me just go to the next question. So the last question on question 1 is saying solve the following quadratic equations by using the quadratic formula, given the solutions in simplified third form. So we start with this one. So the formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. So b squared minus 4ac is called this discriminant over 2a. So we can now plug in the values. So what is our b in this equation? Our b is simply just 2x. So we're getting it from this format. This is bx, then plus c. So x will now be equal to, so negative b there will be negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared, and then minus, of course this is supposed to be in brackets, minus 4. Our a there is 5, and then our c is 1. Then everything divided by 2a. So our a is 5. So this is also going to give us a complex. Yes, so you're going to get negative 2 plus or minus. So when you find the square root of this, you're going to have 4 minus 20, then everything over 10. So the value of x there is just going to be negative 2 plus or minus, this would be the square root of negative 16 over 10. So when you simplify that, you get your value of x being equal to negative 2 plus or minus square root of negative 16 is just 4i if you have done complex numbers, then everything over 10. So you can simplify this further by saying the value of x is negative 1 plus or minus 2i over 5. We just divided everything by 2. That is the solution for that equation. So let's quickly move on to the next question. So for this one, we also follow the same format. So we have our x being equal to negative b will be negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 9 squared. So 9 squared is 81, then minus 4. Our a is 7, then our c is 1, then everything divided by 2. Our a is 7, everything divided by 2a. So the value of x will now be equal to negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 81 minus 4 times 7, which is 28, and then everything divided by 14. The value of x will just be equal to negative 9 plus or minus 81 minus 28 to give you 53. So 81 minus 28 will give you 53. So we're going to have the square root of 53, everything divided by 14. So I think this one cannot be simplified further. Yeah, 53, unless we have maybe a perfect square which can go into 53. But if you don't have, then this is where we can end. This is where we can end. So the value of x is just -9 plus or minus the root of 53 over 14. So thank you very much for watching today's tutorial. Anyway, let me solve the last question. Let me help you solving the last question. Let me solve this one. Oh, we just use z. We solve for z. So we have 25z. So our value of x is just going to be equal to negative b, which is just first of all, before we start solving this one, we organize it properly according to the quadratic format. Yeah, so this is how it's going to be. So negative b will be just -30, which is just going to give us positive 30 plus or minus the root of b squared, which is -30 squared, will give us 900. 900 minus 4 times 25, 100. 100 times 9 give us again 900. Then everything divided by 2 times 25, which is 50. So we say x is equal to 30 plus or minus 0. 900 minus 900 will give us 0. Let me write it properly. So 900 minus, so 2a, which is 50. 900 minus 900 will give us a 0. So just remaining with 30, or let me write it for the sake of people to understand, and then over 50. So we can simplify this. X is just going to be equal to, find the smallest number, maybe 5 can go into 50 how many times? That is 6 into 5 can go into 36 times, and then 5 can go into 50 10 times. I think this can be simplified further by saying 5 can go into, 2 can go into 6 3 times, 2 can go into 6, into 10 5 times. So this is the value of x we have. So in conclusion, this one has equal roots. This one has equal roots because we only have one solution there. So thank you very much for watching today's tutorial. My name is Hamted. Make sure that you don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out the videos that I'm going to be sending. And I formed the Telegram group. Those that may need to join, you can inbox me as soon as possible, and then I'll tell you what to follow. So see you in the next tutorial video.